Hey friends all over the world, I want to tell you the truth about why the prophets are silent. Why the prophets are silent. Have you noticed an unused silence in the prophetic right now? People aren't really saying anything. It's like before 2020, we had all these prophets and people were saying a bunch of stuff about the future of the nation, the future of the election, and yet now there seems to be this deafening silence. Why? What's going on? What's the real reason for this silence in the prophetic? I want to tell you. Listen closely. As I've mentioned before, in 2020, not 2022, during the election, there was this barrage of prophecies about who would be the next president of the United States. There were those that said it would be Trump and those that said it would be Biden. And it created this firestorm in the charismatic movement. I say charismatic because a lot of evangelicals don't even believe in prophecy. But it created this huge thing and this fallout. And it became the metron or the measure by which we judge who was a real prophet or who was a false prophet. Who was genuine and who was inauthentic. We literally measured prophecy based off of who predicted the election correctly. And as a result of that, many prophets went into silence. They went into hiding and have been in hiding since. I don't believe it's that God is not speaking to people. I believe that people are afraid to prophesy. They're afraid. They are traumatized by the backlash that they've received. And so prophets are being manipulated into silence by a spirit of fear. Because in reality, what we're dealing with is Jezebel. It's the spirit of Jezebel. Why do I say it's the spirit of Jezebel? Because look at 2020 till now, right? We're in this election cycle. In the next few days, we're going to hear the announcement of who is the president-elect. And yet, over the last 4 years, if anybody has been paying attention, we have seen chaos and confusion, an assault, an economic assault on the American financial system, jobs, unemployment, all these things happening, right? But not just that, a radical left agenda being promoted at the highest levels of authority. And listen to me, I've said this many times. Prophecy doesn't just call, it causes. Prophecy doesn't just call things like, I call it, there's going to be this one and that one. I believe there's a dimension in the prophetic that actually causes. I believe that prophecy is the impetus for the fulfillment of God's will in the earth. And this is why when the devil is trying to stop a move of God, the first thing he does is he attacks the prophets. We have people that have been in prophetic ministry for 34 years, 40 years, 50 years, have their entire ministries illegitimized, have their character questioned because they allegedly missed a prophetic word. But I'm going to say this on record. I don't think the prophets got it wrong. I don't think the prophets got it wrong at all. I think there were some prophets that were in error, but I don't think by and large the prophets of God got it wrong. I believe they saw correctly. I believe they saw correctly. I believe that they saw correctly. I believe we're in the case of Jeremiah chapter 1. Remember, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you and ordained you a prophet to the nations. And he asked Jeremiah, what do you see? What do you see? He said, I see the rod of an almond tree. Why is that significant? Because prophecy is not always, it is not always as objective as we would like it to be. There is a measure of subjectivity in the prophetic. There are things that we see that God reveals to us that are subject to interpretation. This is why Paul the Apostle wrote in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, for we know in part and we prophesy in part. 1 Corinthians 12, for we know in part and we prophesy in part. Or is that 1 Corinthians 13? Yeah, we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. The reason that is significant is because God does not want one person to have a monopoly on revelation. He doesn't want one area of the body to monopolize gifting. That's why we have, according to Ephesians, the 4th chapter, and he gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and some pastors and teachers for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come into the unity of the faith and unto a perfect man, unto the knowledge of the Son of God. Why? Because we need each other. I need to know what you saw. I need to know what you heard. This is why there's been a deafening silence in the prophetic, because the spirit of Jezebel has tried to intimidate the prophets, to cause them to flee to a cave of silence. I'm telling you the truth. I know what I believe. I know what the Lord has shown me. Okay? Now I don't know who got it wrong, who got it right. I'm not even getting into that. I'm trying to explain to you that the enemy is after the prophetic. Do you know that in 2019, when we went into this decade of the pay, the whole decade of the pay, that is the decade of the open mouth, we saw a pandemic. That was not an accident, because the enemy is trying to close the mouth of men and women of God. He's trying to silence us into submission to where we won't say anything. We won't call out stuff. Come on, somebody. Come on now. Come on. Let me ask you something. If the prophets were so wrong, why is Trump still running for a second term? And why, despite 91 felony indictments and 31 or 33 felony convictions, why is he still up there on that stage? 3 assassination attempts. Why is he still up on that stage? Why? Well, I don't like him. He's a racist. So what? Why? Tell me why. How can any man... You can't even work at Walmart with a felony on your record. And yet this person is standing up there with felony convictions. And the power, listen, this is supernatural. It's not normal. We need to speak. First of all, we need to stand against this Jezebel agenda. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's the spirit of Jezebel. And Jezebel has painted her face, and she's parading around laughing and smiling so she can kill your babies. That's what this is about. You say, well, there's other issues that we need to deal with. Let me tell you something. Any person or any group, any political party who will endorse the murder of children, those people are totally demonized. And they'll kill anybody, not just kids. Like I said in 2020, I believe when this is all said and done, the trumpet will sound. The trumpet will sound on November 5th. There will be a sounding of the trumpet on November 5th. All right, share this with everybody you know.